Hello and welcome to today's webinar, your nonprofit match fund initiative, Maximize Your Page in the Final Days, presented by Angie Kubicek, our Chief Marketing Officer here at Firespring. So Angie is a strategic multidisciplinary marketing professional with an eye for innovation. She has worked for notable companies like Smart Chicken, Yahoo, Bailey Lauerman, Complete Nutrition, which has given her a diverse experience and unique opportunities to go through both client and agency workflows. And her on-point skill sets include media strategy, user experience, social media, branding, content creation, and PR. So as our Chief Marketing Officer here at Firespring, Angie's goal is to combine this knowledge and experience to deliver the best creative and strategy to her clients so they exceed their goals day in and day out. So as far as your nonprofit match fund initiative page goes, she is definitely the right person to talk to. So we're really excited to have her here this morning to share all of her information with you all in this quick webinar, and we're really glad that you're here joining us today. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you. Hey, Angie.
Hey, Julia, thanks so much for that great intro. And thank you guys for joining us today. We know that you're probably, midway through the month and you participated on Giving Tuesday Now and probably are like, oh gosh, I can still leverage the benefits of the match fund page, as well as probably wondering what else could you be doing without coming across as overly greedy or kind of hitting your audience too much too soon. And so given that we have 11 days left, I kind of put pen to paper, and with the team at Firespring, we came up with some ideas to really help you make sure that you're maximizing the final push to get you to your fundraising goals for this match fund initiative. So what we'll be talking about today is really how to optimize your listing on the match fund website, how to go about getting your community involved, connecting with your local media, and then making sure that we walk through some quick ways to show gratitude so you can start stewarding the relationships you've built into longtime donor relationships down the road. So I think today is a condensed webinar. Typically we make these an hour. Today we're going to try and keep it at 30 minutes because I'm sure you're extremely busy. And as Julie mentioned, everything will be shared with you at the end of today's webinar. But if you have any questions either today or in the future, do not hesitate to reach out to me on LinkedIn or on Twitter. I'm fairly active on both channels and would love to be a resource to help you hit your mission, whether again right now during the match fund phase or down the road as you're facing other challenges or obstacles that could be in front of your nonprofit. So specifically, I want to kick off with making sure that you've done everything you can to make sure that you have optimized your listing. And so when we're within the framework of the website and the portal where your campaign is living, we want to make sure that we are really doing everything we can to drive people to your page. The page that you have set up within that framework is a really clean, clear communication page. But in order to maximize the amount that is going into that match fund, we want to make sure that people are really being pushed there. So make sure that you're having everything you do for requesting donations push back to this page instead of fragmenting those efforts into other channels. It just creates like a little bit of a disparity of like expectations. So anything that you're doing for fundraising dollars that is tied to the match fund initiative or anything through the next 11 days, I would push everything to your nonprofits page within the framework of now.firespring.com. And then to optimize your listing, you're going to want to make sure that you've really thought about telling a compelling story, which we'll talk about a little bit later, but you're going to want to make sure that you really have that front and center and that you're really pulling the heart of what your organization is about up to the top of that page. Use captivating images. I think right now it's a great time to refresh some of the content you've put on the page. So put images that really connect with your donors and supporters. Make your need very clear. So right now during this pandemic phase of life that we are in, it's important to make sure that you are very articulate about what you're trying to raise funds for. People really need to see the end goal of what you're trying to achieve and the impact you're going to make with the dollars they give you. So make sure you make it very known to your audience what you're raising the dollars to do for your organization. Make sure that you let people know that you're participating in a match fund, because that helps people unlock their pocketbooks. There's something about that psychology that then lets me think, oh, if I give 10, they're going to get more. Even though you don't have to articulate what the match fund percentage is. You just need to say, I'm participating in the match fund. The more we raise, the better off we'll be to be eligible for that match fund. And it just helps people mentally then want to give more. Make sure that you lean on the brand that we participated in to kick off the initiative, and then make sure that you're using any of your ad grants to kind of promote yourself to your different audiences, whether it's through social media ad grants or Google ad grants, to really drive that awareness that you're really trying to collect money right now during this match fund initiative. So if you are doing those things, then you're already setting yourself up for success. But if you feel like your page has been under delivering, it's not converting as well for you, I would go in and make sure that you're refreshing your story. Is your ask very clear? Is it compelling? Is it easy to kind of get to the heart of the matter? And if not, I would optimize the content you've put on your page. So once you have your page really kind of refined and set up for a way that's going to help you excel with your community, the next thing you're going to want to do is to get that community involved. And so the one thing we do know is that 74% of consumers rely on social media to influence their buying decision. And I know this sounds like a very influencer, like an B2C type of thing to think about, but when we think about customers, donors, consumers in general, we all are of the same kind of initial makeup to a degree, to where we have certain expectations. And so when we are choosing to donate to a nonprofit, we are choosing to align our dollars to that cause, which is a purchasing decision. And so knowing that's really important. We also know that people, when they, like for an example, I donated to a nonprofit for my birthday. I said, instead of giving me presents or anything, just donate and help out the Lucky Fin Project. And so how people then learn more about that organization is they go to that social media profile of that organization, and then they go to the website. And so making sure that we're aware of that like established connection that's happening in the world now is really important. But if I promote a nonprofit as important to me on social media, it then permeates my audience, and then they start to want to know more about that organization and to align to it. So if someone is going to ask questions about Lucky Fin Project, I'm probably a source they're going to come to now versus doing cold research on their own. So we know this as a fact, and so we should leverage the power of social media to really impact our connections with people. So what you're going to want to do to expand out your footprint in social media is to tap into those advocates and influencers within your network that are already existing, and ask them to, if they've already given, that's amazing. Ask them to not give money at this point, but you're asking them to give you their social clout and their social equity, and ask them to promote you and the match fund initiative on your behalf, and to ask them to ask their audience to support you by giving $5 to your organization, or $10, or whatever makes sense for the socioeconomic setup of your communities. But making sure that the ask is very specific and that they drive people to your match fund page. So again, you're accruing, oh my gosh, words on a Friday, you're collecting that donation. And then when you're thinking about who should I be asking, your board members are an obvious pick, your committee members, volunteers, really engaged donors, staff members, and those are the people that can act as your advocate. Now, when you go to reach out for that ask, do your homework, and it takes like 10 to 15 minutes to do that. Once you know you're like, if you have a list of 20 people you think you can engage, quickly look them up on Facebook, because that's going to be the channel that gets you the most engagement the fastest and give you the furthest reach. So just hone in on Facebook or LinkedIn, but do they have a profile, and are they updating? If so, that's someone you could reach out to. So you have those check boxes, and then make sure that you're giving them something that gets them excited to want to share on your behalf. So what you're going to want to do is, we are creatures of convenience. We want things to be personalized and tailored, and I'm more willing to help you if you make it as easy as possible for me to promote you on your behalf. So create a quick marketing toolkit. This does not have to be overly complicated. You have 11 days left within the cycle of fundraising. So let's assume you use the rest of this afternoon to kind of like get your life pulled together and put a strategy in place. You could use Monday to start your reach out to connect with those donors. So that gives you 11 to 9, 8 days away from the end of the match fund fundraising initiative. So you're going to ask these individuals to post 2, maybe 3 times on your behalf. I think 2 is appropriate. So now you're just creating 2 content pieces, and you're going to send it to all the individuals who make sense to be your advocate. So that's, if you have a list of say 20 people who could be an advocate for you, that's 40 posts total that are going to go out into the world, but you're only creating 2, but you're going to really try and gather that maximized effort to get them to all amplify your nonprofit on your behalf. So within those 2 posts, you're going to want to pre-write the social copy for them, and you're going to want to keep it short. You're going to want to take the copy that you give them and put it into a calendar invite within like the description, and send them an invite to remind them to do the posting on your behalf. If you have an image or anything like that, provide them the piece of content within that calendar invite. And that way then they have everything they need at their fingertips to be able to easily promote you on your behalf. If you're wondering what kind of content should you do within your 2 posts, the thing I would do is I would set up a very specific ask. Like, I gave $10. I'm asking everyone in my network to give $10 to this organization, and it'll help them achieve XYZ. Donate here. Make sure they have a link. And what you can do is take that Firespring URL, take it to Bitly, and give each of your influencers their own trackable, identifiable URL. So that way you can then also see which influencers are driving the most traffic to your fundraising page. And so that would be your first post. And then your second post you're going to give them is on the last day. Today's the last day this nonprofit can hit their goal of achieving XYZ. Please help them out and give what you can, but I'm challenging everyone to give $10. Do so today, right? Very simple things to give them to put out into their world, and it's done, right? So then you want to make sure then that you also have a thank you that you can give them after they're done with their support of you. So that way they know that you genuinely appreciate what they've done for you, but then also give them a third piece of content that allows them to thank their network and community. And so then you're going to send them something that's, thank you guys so much for supporting XYZ organization. They were able to raise X dollars because of your support. I appreciate everyone that gave them, that helped them out, right? Something very simple. So now you're done. You've created 3 posts, and now you've extended your footprint and hopefully also raised awareness of your organization in your communities. So then how can you make this fun for those advocates, right? People want to be entertained. We're all going a little stir crazy. People are starting to get a little punchy. So them posting about this initiative within their Facebook feed is going to be something that will hopefully disrupt what people are seeing within their news feed. But we want to make sure that we can try and make this super fun. And this doesn't have to be a costly endeavor whatsoever. So gamify it. So what you could say is like, okay, we've selected 2 of the advocates. You could send them an email that says, we've selected 20 advocates and you've all agreed to help us out during this last push of this fundraiser. The top 3 are going to get a gift card to XYZ restaurant group if we achieve our goal, right? Makes it very easy, something super simple. You could do an incentive for them. Okay, we are tracking the URLs that we gave you. So if you can get 10 people to click on your link, then you will get a $5 gift card to whatever coffee house is in your area, right? Something super simple. And then make sure you're showing them the impact. So after that first post that you have them do, you could then send them a message and say, oh my gosh, after your post, we had this kind of a lift in our sales and our revenue generation for this initiative. Thank you so much. You made this happen. Like, that makes them feel so good. It taps into one of the 7 motivators of giving, which is phenomenal. So if you can do something like that, and again, you could have one prize. You could do, if you can get us, if we raise $500 more dollars, each of you is going to get a $5 gift card, whatever it is. Make it financially make sense for you, but that could be the incentive. Make it a collective challenge. But those are ways to just get people excited to want to help out. And ideally, if you can get those gift cards donated, or if you have, I know a lot of nonprofits when they're doing fundraisers, they're always gifted gift cards to different restaurants or retailers in their area. but it's really hard to get them all included in silent auction gift baskets. So if you have any of those laid around, you can always just pull from your archives and dust it off and give it out as prize. Or what other things can you give away that don't cost you money? Something like you'll mention them in social media. You could have one of the people who benefit from your organization create a plaque for them, or a coffee mug, or something that makes it super easy but meaningful from your organization. The third thing is make sure you get your local media involved. This is something that nonprofits don't necessarily do a ton of. And so right now might be your moment to shine in connecting with your media. Right now, we see a lot of really intense content in our headlines on the news, and it's pretty depressing. I personally have had to like shut away from the news when it's on, and yet my husband's like a 24/7 watcher of the news. And so it just gets really overwhelming and daunting. But what we are seeing is people are wanting to hear more of the goodwill stories. We have John Krasinski with his new like live stream that he's doing, where he has his new good news channel that he's doing that's super fun. So people are wanting to see the goodwill, and we're starting to see that different media aspects are starting to pull the goodwill and putting it to the top of their page, or having it be something that they really put out there. And you can be that goodwill story by talking about the impact your community has had on your nonprofit during this fundraising time. You could also talk about the impact you have on your community and why you're asking for the dollars. So how do you go about doing this if you've never done PR before? I'm going to try and give you a really basic PR 101 to help you just make a couple of connections. You could spend part of your afternoon today identifying who you want to reach out to. And then on Monday is when you're going to want to start your outreach plans. And Monday early morning, it should be the first thing you do when you get to the office. And I'm air quoting office because I'm sure you're all working from home. But identify what your top news outlets are. And you're going to want to then, once you find your journalists, which we'll talk about in a second, you're going to want to email and call them, because so many people don't pick up the phone and call. So when that happens, it has a big impact on reporters, and they're more likely to cover your story, especially if you're talking to someone who's local. Tailor your communication to the journalists. So what that means is making sure that you have done your research and you can see something that they've recently covered and you want to mention it. Oh my gosh, I really enjoyed your piece about XYZ. I think I have something you're going to be interested in talking about. Make sure your story is prepared, and then do the follow-up. So how to identify journalists. There's a couple of just super easy ways to go about this. One way is if you, in your search bar within Google, if you go to the news section and then type in nonprofit or community and then comma location, you'll get a list of news stories that have come out about things in your community, and you can start to identify journalists that way. Sometimes you can get unrelated information in the search. So what I like to do is super cheap, and I go to some of my main publications, and a lot of them will list who the journalists are and their contact information on the website. A lot of newspapers will do that with the reporters. You can see like ways to contact them. But for this situation, especially because it's coming up so quickly, you probably want to try and get some sort of an interview on your news channel, local news stations. And ABC and CBS typically, so all of the NBC, ABC, and CBS have very similar website frameworks for their entire network across the country. And ABC and CBS allow you to find their reporters on their website. CBS's is called Staff. And if you click on that, you'll see the drop down of all the reports for your local CBS station, but they typically only solicit like their social media profiles. Rarely do they put up the email. ABC, on the other hand, typically, when you then click into the reporter's bio, it will then show you, you can connect with them on social, but you can also email them. So there's a couple different ways that you can go about trying to do that outreach, but this is a really quick way to try and get that fast coverage. And that is pretty universal across the country. Some vary a little bit here and there, but for those three major hubs, that's the fastest way to connect with some of the reporters in your area. And then when you're pitching them, again, make sure you talk about their recent work. Do your reach out really early in the day, because you want to try and catch them as they're building what they're going to talk about that afternoon or evening on the phone. Be very specific and get to the point quickly because they're busy. They have a lot of things to look over. So you're going to want to make sure your communication's as concise as possible. So use bulleted lists over paragraphs because they want to be able to quickly scan and understand what your story could be about. And then tell your impact story and the need you have. Make sure that's featured, it's front and center, because that's really important to capturing our journalists' attention. And a great way to help you kind of formulate what your story is going to be is to use a story arc similar to this. What's your objective? What are you trying to achieve? You highlight the problem you're trying to fix. What are the important stats or facts that happen if you don't overcome the problem? Why should they care? Now what? Bring it all together, and that will help you formulate the pitch that you're going to give to that journalist. And then keep at it. Just because they don't respond to you on Monday after you reach out does not mean you're not on their radar. So if you send your email on Monday, you follow up Monday afternoon with a phone call, I would follow up on Tuesday and Wednesday with emails and phone calls as well. So I would only pick about 5 to 10 journalists that you want to kind of reach out to, so that way you can keep your energy really focused. But I bet you have high success with that little strategy to help get more awareness drawn to the fact that you're trying to generate funds for this campaign. And then the last piece is, it's not necessarily tied to optimizing yourself for the next 11 days, but it is going to help you optimize your approach moving forward, is making sure that you really focus on your appreciation strategy and showering your constituents with thanks. This is honestly, the truth of the matter is, a lot of people get left behind because they don't focus on this. And the reason, one of the top 2 reasons people don't give a second time after a first donation is because they don't remember the organization, because they never got follow-up communication. So just because you're participating in like a campaign outside of your typical fundraising efforts, don't forget to follow up with your new donors, especially if you leverage the advocacy strategy to connect with a broader audience. So make sure that your appreciation is swift. Make sure you're not waiting too long to get things out there. So you want to make sure that you have your first thing go out within 72 hours. You also want to make sure that you start to segment your donors, so you can start to communicate to the donors that you receive support from and the ways that make sense to the type of appreciation that is appropriate for the level that they gave. And then, you might want to get their input on what they thought of the fundraiser, what do they think of the experience, and then you want to make sure that you plan to show them gratitude throughout the year. Hey, remember when you helped this in May? This is the impact it had. So that way you can keep them engaged. And then once you are able to have that physical event, make sure you invite everyone to that moment. You should try to do at least 3 thank yous after your event. It's really important. It helps keep you top of mind, and it shows your supporters that you truly, genuinely care. So what you want to do is make sure that you're thanking people within 3 days of their gifts. So make sure you're kind of keeping a watchful eye on the donations you're getting, so you can, again, swiftly follow up. And then do something, I would say, in a month after we complete the initiative, and say, here's the total impact we had as a community. Thank you so much. And then a few months down the road, let them know, what's going on with your organization, and give them updates as to what you have happening. So that way they feel connected and bought in on the mission of your organization. So your action steps are going to be pretty straightforward. So optimize your listing if you haven't already done so. Make sure you're connecting with your supporters and trying to see if you can turn them into your advocates. Draft a communication and try and contact 3 media personnel starting on Monday. Segment your email list and connect with your inactive donors. That will help you kind of make sure that you're digging deep within your well. And then you want to make sure you have a stewarding strategy to start building stronger relationships, because we kind of are in an unknown of like, what's the next phase of this pandemic. And so you want to make sure that you're building a lot of goodwill with your constituents between the giving moments that you have to ask, because you want them to think of you outside of the asking times, but you want them to think of you during the quiet phase where you're just trying to showcase your impact. And so I'm going to open up the questions panel. If you have something that you would like to get more insight on, feel free to submit your questions. As Julia mentioned, we have a ton of webinars about a variety of topics. So keep learning with us. We'd love to keep connecting with you down the road. Julia, do you have any questions?
Hey Angie, yeah, one question in here from Aaron. They say they don't have any identified influencers for their nonprofit. What is a good way for them to start to find that?
Yeah, so the one thing that you could do, an influencer is kind of a term that can get used a little loosely. They don't have to have like 500 or 1,000 followers. They just have to have an engaged following. So maybe look at your social content and think about who has liked your post, who has commented on your content, and then click on their profile and you can kind of get a quick snapshot of what that person is doing from their social account. You can kind of see how many people are connected to them. And so that might be the first baby steps of getting started, is just to do some of that, a little bit of like internet stalking to see who's already engaging with you and tapping into those individuals out of the gate.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Angie. So far, that's all I have in the questions panel. So I'm going to go ahead
Awesome.
and hand it back over to you. Thanks.
Awesome. And follow up to that, Erin, we do have a social media 102 and a engaging your influencers kind of webinar topic that we can get you a recording of that. And it has a lot deeper content around that topic specifically that might be helpful. So please let us know how we did today. We know you guys are all very busy, and so making sure we provide webinar content that's actionable for you is something that we really pride ourselves on. So please give us your honest feedback in the survey. It helps us always improve everything we're doing. But thank you guys so much for everything you do and for choosing the professions that you have. Nonprofits are truly the backbones of our society, and without you, we'd be way worse off. So hopefully this match fund is helping you get those much needed donor dollars, and we look forward to connecting with you in the future.